Okay, Algebra 8. So we are moving on to section 2.2. This is comparing and ordering rational numbers. So if I look right here, these are our notes. And we are going to compare these fractions and decimals with these symbols. So less than, greater than, or equal to. Remember that my symbol, I always thought about it as a Pac-Man. It's always going to want to eat the bigger number. And then so this would be the smaller number. Okay, because he's always really hungry. Okay, so if they do not have a common denominator, we need to find that. So sometimes you can think about it, like if I look at my second example, I know that both 4 and 6 go into 12. So I can just multiply this one by a 2 over 2. You have to multiply the top and the bottom by the same. And then this one I can multiply by a 3 over 3. So this gives me 9/12, and this gives me 10/12. So who's bigger, 9 or 10? And that would be 10. But you cannot compare until you have a common denominator. Okay, so 8 and 12, maybe you can't think right off the top of your head what they both have in common. So what you can do is you can just multiply by the opposite denominator. So I can multiply this one by an 8 over 8 and this one by a 12 over 12. Okay, so 12 times 8, if you don't remember, 8 times 2 is 16. 8 and 1 is 8, plus 9 is 96. So we know that our denominator is going to be 96. 12 times 5 is 60. And then 12 times 8 is 96. And I'm pretty sure 8 times 7, oh yeah, I know that one, 56. So who is bigger, 60 or 56? You can compare if the pie is cut into the same number of pieces. So we know that the open end would go that way. Okay. So these fractions are written, I'm just going to rewrite them so we can visualize it a little better. Couple little tricks I can teach you, and maybe you guys remember. If the whole numbers are the same, then obviously you have to move on to the fraction to compare. Well, if you have 3 slices of a pie that's cut into 8 chunks versus 3 slices of a pie that's cut into 5 chunks, which one's going to be more? The 5-chunk pie is going to be more because you took that circle and instead of having 8 chunks, I don't know if I can cut 5 chunks, but we'll try. Well, that's 4. We'll make one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's not perfectly even, but you get my idea. So who's got bigger pieces? This one has bigger pieces. Anytime you have a fraction and a decimal, I almost always will take my fraction and convert it to a decimal. You can do this 2 different ways. You can divide 6 divided by 10. 10 goes into 60 6 times, or some of you are just going to recognize that 6/10 is 0.6. The next thing is that sometimes people have a hard time comparing. Anytime you have a decimal and they don't have the same number of digits, you can just add a 0. Now you're comparing 60 and 53. So 60 is larger except for when they're negative. So when they're negative, the smaller number is really bigger. Next one I have 9/11 and 0.8. So 9/11, I'm going to do that long division off to the side here. 11 does not go into 9. It goes into 98 times, and I get 88. And it goes into 20 one time. And then what's going to happen, you can see this is going to repeat. So this is actually 0.81 repeating. So again, if you don't have enough digits, you can add a 0 here. So who's bigger, 81 or 80? And the 81 is larger. So those just take some practice and some refreshing of going back to when you were doing those types of problems in 5th and 6th grade. So the last example here, they want you to compare more than one number. So I'm going to write them all down because it says from 2000 to 2003, the percent changes in populations for 3 states and the District of Columbia were 12/5, -1.3, 4.0, and -1.5. List these in order from least to greatest. So one thing is if I have decimals and fractions, I almost always will go to decimals. This one, in my opinion, is pretty simple for us. 1/2 is just 0.5. So really the only one that I need to change is this 12/5. So I'm going to do that off to the side here. Top number divided by bottom. 5 does not go into 1, but 5 goes into 12 twice. Put your decimal point there when you add your 0. 5 goes into 24 times. So this is 2.4. So now who is my smallest number? My smallest number is that biggest negative. So -1.5. Then my next, actually I should list this as the original form. Okay, then my next number would be the 2.4, which is 12/5. And my next number is 4.0. So there, I listed them in order from least to greatest. So a lot of this is just getting them into the same form so you can compare. Remember, fractions, they have to have common denominators to compare. And if you have decimals and fractions, it's easiest most of the time to get them both into a decimal in order to compare.